Welcome everybody to another session, a Saturday morning session of Krishna Katha. Since the coming up, next Ekadashi that's coming up is the Pandava Nirjala Ekadashi, we thought why not take this opportunity to, talk about Ekadashis and then consider the glories of Ekadashi. So let's start off as always with the Mangalacharan. Om Ajnanatimirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kada Mahyam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathanvitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakhanvitamscha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Deenabandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Haripriye Vancha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya eva cha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Matsamo nasti papatma na paradi cha kaschana parihare api lajjami kim bruvet purushottama yuvatinam yatha yunam cha yuvatau yatha mano bibhramate tadvan mano me ramatam tvayi Bhumau skalitapadanam bhumireva avalambanam tvayi jata paradhanam tvameva sharanam prabho गोविन्द वल्लभे राधे प्रार्थये त्वामहं सदा तदीयम् इति जानातु गोविन्दो मां त्वया सह राधे वृन्दावनाधीशे करुणामृतवाहिनी कृपया निजपादाब्ज दास्यं मह्यं प्रदीयताम् So can we put the Jai Radha Mother? Sing that. Jayo Radha Madhava Jayo Kunja Vihari Jayo Radha Madhava Jayo Kunja Vihari Jayo Gopijana Vallabha Jayo Girivaradhari Jayo Girivaradhari Jayo Radha Madhava Jayo Kunja Vihari Yashodanandana Rajajana Ranjana Yashodanandana Rajajana Ranjana Yamuna Tiravana Chari Yamuna Tiravana Chari Jayo Radha Madhava Jayo Kunja Vihari Jayo Radha Madhava, Jayo Kunja Bihari, Jayo Gopijana Vallabha, Jayo Girivaradhari, Jayo Girivaradhari, Jayo Radha Madhava, Jayo Kunja Bihari, Jayo Radha Madhava, Jayo Kunja Bihari, Jayo Radha Madhava, Jayo Kunja Bihari. Hare Krishna. So today we wanted to talk about a topic. Well, we have two nice events coming up. One is the Pandava Nirjala Ekadashi, which is coming up in June 20th of this month for us here in Silicon Valley. And another one that's coming up is the Panihati Chittadai Festival. So I was thinking it would be so wonderful to take this opportunity to touch base on one of our core concepts of our sadhana, which is the Ekadashi fasting that we do. Now, when we talk about Ekadashi, Ekadashi literally means Ekadasha, which means 1 and 10, the 11th day of the month. And since we have the waxing and waning, the two fortnights of the month, we end up with two Ekadashis to celebrate every month. In a materialistic surrounding, there doesn't seem to be much cause for celebration except for those marked holidays that we end up with during the year. But being a Vaishnava is such a wonderful blessing. We have more holidays to celebrate than anybody else, I think. And the very fact that we have these two Ekadashis makes our life so much more special in a very distinct way. Ekadashi, Srila Prabhupada talks about Ekadashi and he says, well, Ekadashi is for fasting and chanting. And those are the core two subjects of that day for us. So let's look at Ekadashi. First, let's look at Ekadashi as a fasting day. And then let's look at this specific day that's coming up, Pandava Nirjala Ekadashi. So Ekadashi, we have, as I said, two Ekadashis every month. So considering that, we have about 24 Ekadashis in a year, 24 opportunities to show our love and affection for the Lord, 24 opportunities to practice a little bit of tapasya in our day. And if we are blessed with an Adhika Mas that year, then we get two more Ekadashis that are added on, the Padmini Ekadashi and the Parama Ekadashi. Of all the vratas or vows of austerity that Vaishnavas take, Vishnu is most pleased with those who observe the Ekadashi vrata. Ekadashi fasting is undertaken principally for the sake of pleasing the Lord. Those who are interested in advancing in Krishna consciousness, especially those who have taken it up as a way of life, must certainly observe the Ekadashi vrata. Ekadashi vrata is considered one of the mothers of devotion. Ekadashi in itself is a form of Lord Vishnu, and by observing the Ekadashi vow, it not only decreases the amount of sin or bad karma that we have already imbibed, it also eats up a lot of sinful reactions and thereby paves the way for progress, ultimately bringing us to the abode of Vishnu, Vaikuntha. That is what the scriptural reference to Ekadashi is. Because it is able to do that, Ekadashi is considered the mother of devotion. Because in the process of following Ekadashi, we are able to remove the obstacles that arise in our path of devotional service. Let's look at what Ekadashi means to a Vaishnava. When we think of a Vaishnava, one of the prime examples of a Vaishnava would be Srila Bhakti Vinod Thakur, our seventh Goswami. He has written in a song, Suddha Bhakta Charanarenu, this song, which is taken from the book Sharanagati, in the section Bhakti Anukula Matra Karyera Svikara song, number 3. That was the quote. So Bhakti Vinod Thakur describes the association with Sri Krishna's devotees as being very, very important. He speaks of the importance of the holy dham, where the pastimes of Lord Krishna Chaitanya were performed. And then he speaks in that song about the importance of observing fasts like Ekadashi and Janmashtami. He says, Madhavati thi bhakti janani jatane palan kori. Madhavati thi bhakti janani jatane palan kori. Krishna basati basati boli parama adhara bori. Krishna basati basati boli parama adhara bori. The holy days, like Ekadashi and Janmashtami, are the mother of devotion for those devotees who respect them. Let the holy places of Krishna's pastimes be my places of worship and bless me. So, in that, he specifically talks about these holy days and he again describes them as the mother of devotion. Ekadashi has a few rules and regulations. If we look at the Hari Bhakti Vilas, the regulations that are quoted there are at a much higher, more technical level. Vaishnavas in the process of following Krishna consciousness start from basics. And when we want to understand Ekadashi and see how can I as a Vaishnav follow Ekadashi, we would like to start with the instructions of Acharya Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada did not make Ekadashi very complicated for us. He didn't demand very extremely strict regulations. He gave us a very simple set of rules, which are easy to follow. And in the process of following them, we can advance. Because an Acharya knows the time, place, and circumstance and can modify rules and regulations according to that, it is good to start with Srila Prabhupada's instructions. In the Vaishnava etiquette manual, which I went through, there are certain instructions on how to execute Ekadashi. Let's take a look at what they are. Ekadashi, as we said, is a day of fasting observed by all devotees. Srila Prabhupada usually observed Ekadashi fast in the simplest manner prescribed in scripture. He refrained from eating grains, beans, peas, and dal. Some devotees eat only fruit on Ekadashi. Some take only water, and some fully fast, which is called Nirjala Vrata. All devotees must avoid the following foods on Ekadashi: all grains, wheat, rice, etc., dal, peas, bean type vegetables, mustard seeds and their derivatives, wheat flour, mustard oil, etc. So, all grains, dals, beans, seeds, and anything that's made with them as ingredients would also be required to be avoided. Food items that contain these products, a part of the ingredient list, should be avoided. Be careful in using powdered spices. If mixed with flour, they cannot be used on Ekadashi. Also, avoid powdered asafoetida or hing since it contains grains. Sesame seeds are to be avoided except for one specific Ekadashi, which is Sath-til Ekadasi. On that day, they can be offered and eaten. One who very strictly observes Ekadashi should avoid all spices except pepper, rock salt, and cumin. Do not use any cooking ingredients that may be mixed with grains, such as ghee that's been used to fry puris or spices, or touched by hands that have been dusted with chapati flour. Try to use fresh ghee when cooking on Ekadashi. The Ekadashi fast is broken the next day, called Dvadashi, by taking prasadam prepared with grains. The fast must be broken within a specific time, and for the dates and times for breaking fast, please consult the Vaishnava calendar, which is available at every ISKCON center. The real purpose of Ekadashi observance, however, is not simply to fast, but to increase our time for hearing and chanting about Lord Sri Krishna. Srila Prabhupada recommended that devotees can chant 25 or more rounds of japa on Ekadashi. Shaving, cutting nails is forbidden on Ekadashi. So these instructions are very simple, very clear. The Vaishnava etiquette manual that guides all of us in our day-to-day running of our Vaishnava lifestyles explains Ekadashi processes like this. But what is Ekadashi? I've always wondered, where is the beginning of Ekadashi? How did it start? I get to read about Ekadashi. So there is this wonderful book, Ekadashi, the Day of Hari. And this was written by Krishna Balram Swami and published by Bhaktivedanta Institute. This is an old book. I don't think the publication is currently available. But in the process of doing my service, I was blessed to get an opportunity to receive this book. So this book has a list of all 24 Ekadashis. Actually 26 Ekadashis. And if you want to, it's available online. All 26 Ekadashi stories are available online. It's a great opportunity to read from it. but it doesn't have the story of Ekadashi by itself. So, having took some time to search it out, I noticed that we have only one reference to the story of Ekadashi. It comes from an article written in 1956 by Sri Navina Chandra Chakravarti, a disciple of Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Goswami Maharaj. There are many stories of Ekadashis in the Puranas, but most will explain the material benefits and blessings that one gets from observing Ekadashi. This article, based on a conversation between Srila Vyasadeva and Jaimini Rishi, gives the real spiritual reason for following the vow of Ekadashi as emphasized by Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu in the Chaitanya Charitamrita and later by Srila Prabhupada. So let's listen to that and see what it is. Many devotees are very inquisitive about the appearance of Sri Ekadashi and her special characteristics. Therefore, I present this description from the 14th chapter of the Padma Purana, from the section entitled Kriya Sagarasara. Once the great sage Jaimini Rishi said to his spiritual master, O Gurudeva, previously by your mercy you described to me the history of the Ganga river, the benefits of worshipping Vishnu, the giving of grains in charity, the giving of water in charity, and the magnanimity of drinking water that has been used to wash the feet of the Brahmanas. O best of sages, Sri Gurudeva, now with great enthusiasm, I desire to hear of the benefits of fasting on Ekadashi and of the appearance of Ekadashi. O Gurudeva, when did Ekadashi take birth and from whom did she appear? What are the rules of fasting on the day of Ekadashi? Please describe the benefits of following this vow and when it should be followed. Who is the utmost worshipable presiding deity of Sri Ekadashi? What are the faults in not observing it properly? Please bestow your mercy upon me and tell me about these subjects, as you are the only personality able to do so. Srila Vyasadeva, upon hearing this inquiry from Jaimini Rishi, became situated in transcendental bliss. O Brahman sage Jaimini, the results of following Ekadashi can be perfectly described by the Supreme Lord Narayan, because Sri Narayan is the only personality capable of describing them in full. But I will give you a very brief description in answer to your question. At the beginning of material creation, the Supreme Lord created the moving and non moving living entities within this world made of 5 gross material elements. Simultaneously, for the purpose of punishing the evil human beings, he created a personality whose form was embodied the worst kinds of sin, the Papa Purusha. The different limbs of this personality were constructed from various sinful activities. His head was made of the sin of murdering a Brahman. His 2 eyes were the form of drinking intoxicants. His mouth was made from the sin of stealing gold. His ears were the forms of the sin of having illicit connection with a spiritual master's wife. His nose was the sin of killing one's wife. His arms, the form of sin of killing a cow. His neck was made of the sin of stealing accumulated wealth. His chest, the sin of abortion. The lower chest, the sin of having sex with another's wife. His stomach, the sin of killing one's relatives. His navel, of the sin of killing those who are dependent on him. His waist, of the sin of egoistic self-appraisal. His thighs, of the sin of offending the guru. His genitals are the sin of selling one's daughter. His buttocks are the sin of telling confidential matters. His feet, the sin of killing one's father. His hair was a form of all sorts of less severe, sinful activities. In this way, a horrible personality, embodying all sinful activities and vices, was created. His bodily color was black. His eyes are yellow. He inflicts extreme misery upon sinful people. The Supreme Personality of Godhead, Lord Vishnu, upon seeing this personality of sin, began to think to himself as follows: I am the creator of the miseries and happiness for living entities. I am their master because I have created this personality of sin who gives distress to all dishonest, deceitful, and sinful persons. Now I must create someone who will control this personality. At this time, Sri Bhagavan created the personality of Yamaraj and the different hellish planetary systems. Those living entities who are very sinful will be sent after death to Yamaraj, who in turn, according to their sins, send them to an appropriate hellish region to suffer. After these adjustments have been made, the Supreme Lord, who is the giver of distress and happiness to the living entities, went to the house of Yamaraj with the help of Garuda, the king of birds. When Yamaraj saw Lord Vishnu had arrived, he immediately washed his feet and made an offering unto him. He then had him sit upon a golden throne. The Supreme Lord Vishnu became seated upon the throne, whereupon he heard very loud crying sounds from the southern direction. He became surprised by this and inquired of Yamaraj, From where is this loud crying coming? Yamaraj replied, O Deva, The different living entities of the earthly planets have fallen to the hellish regions. They are suffering extremely for their misdeeds. The horrible crying is because of the suffering from the inflictions of their past bad actions. After hearing this, the Supreme Lord Vishnu went to the hellish region to the south. When the inhabitants saw who had come, they began to cry even louder. The heart of the Supreme Lord became filled with compassion. Lord Vishnu thought to himself, I have created all this progeny, and it is because of me that they are suffering. Oh, Jaimini, just listen to what the Supreme Lord did next. After the merciful Supreme Lord thought over what he had previously considered, he suddenly manifested from his own form the deity of the lunar day, Ekadashi. Afterwards, the different sinful living entities began to follow the vow of Ekadashi and were then elevated quickly to the abode of Vaikuntha. O my child Jaimini, therefore the lunar day of Ekadashi is the self-same form of the Supreme Lord Vishnu and the supersoul within the heart of the living entities. Sri Ekadashi is the utmost pious activity and is situated at the head among all vows. Following the ascension of Sri Ekadashi, the personality who is the form of sinful activity gradually saw the influence that Sri Ekadashi had. Thus he approached Lord Vishnu with doubts in his heart and began offering many prayers. Whereupon Lord Vishnu became very pleased and said, I have become very pleased by your nice offerings. What boon is it that you want? The Papa Purusha replied, I am your created progeny. It is through me that you wanted distress given to the living entities who are very sinful. But now, by the influence of Sri Ekadashi, I have become all but destroyed. O Prabhu, after I die, all of your parts and parcels who have accepted material bodies will become liberated and return to the abode of Vaikuntha. If this liberation of all living entities takes place, who will carry on your activities? There will be no one to enact pastimes in the earthly planetary systems. O Keshava, if you want these eternal pastimes to carry on, then you must save me. Please save me from the fear of Ekadashi. No type of pious activity can bind me, but Ekadashi only, being your own manifested form, can impede me. Out of fear of Sri Ekadashi, I have fled and taken shelter of men, animals, insects, hills, trees, moving and non-moving living entities, rivers, oceans, forests, heavenly, earthly, and hellish planetary systems, demigods, and the Gandharvas. I cannot find a place where I can be free from the fear of Sri Ekadashi. Oh, my master, I am a product of your creation, so therefore, very mercifully, direct me to a place where I can reside fearlessly. Vyasadeva then said to Jaimini, after saying this, the embodiment of all sinful activities, the Papa Purusha, fell down at the feet of Supreme Lord Vishnu, who is the destroyer of all miseries, and began to cry. After this, Lord Vishnu, observing the condition of the Papa Purusha with laughter, began to speak thus, O Papa Purusha, rise up. Do not lament any longer. Just listen. I'll tell you where you can stay on the lunar day of Ekadashi. On the day of Sri Ekadashi, which is the benefactor of the three planetary systems, you can take shelter of foodstuffs in the form of grains. There is no reason to worry about this anymore, because my form as Sri Ekadashi will no longer impede you. After giving direction to the Papa Purusha, the Supreme Lord Vishnu disappeared, and the Papa Purusha returned to the performance of his own activities. Therefore, those persons who are serious about the ultimate benefit of the soul will never eat grains on Ekadashi. According to the instructions of Lord Vishnu, every kind of sinful activity that can be found in the material world takes residence in this place of grains. Whoever follows Ekadashi is freed from all sins and never enters into the hellish regions. If one doesn't follow Ekadashi because of illusion, he is considered the utmost sinner. For every mouth of grain that is eaten by a resident of the earthly region on Ekadashi, one receives the effect of killing millions of brahmanas. It is definitely necessary that one give up eating grains on Ekadashi. I very strongly say again and again, on Ekadashi, do not eat grains, do not eat grains, do not eat grains. Whether one be a Kshatriya, Vaishya, Shudra, or of any family, he should follow the lunar day of Ekadashi. For this is the perfection of Varna and Ashrama, especially since if one, even by trickery, follows Ekadashi, all his sins become destroyed, and he very easily attains the supreme goal, the abode of Vaikuntha. So that was the story of the appearance of Sri Ekadashi, who is an expansion of the Lord, and who comes to bestow upon us the benedictions that the Lord wanted for all suffering living entities. There is no restriction on who can follow Ekadashi. It is open to both men and women, old and young, each according to their ability, as Vaisheshika Maharaj always says. Srila Prabhupada was kind enough to give us a more flexible form of Ekadashi Vrata that allows almost everybody to follow. If we want to look more on the concepts of Ekadashi, we could look at some of the quotes in the scriptures about the benefits of doing Ekadashi Vrata. So let me get back to the point we were making. Observing the Ekadashi Vrata is one of the principal duties of the Vaishnava. And now we know from hearing the story of how the Ekadashi came to be, we understand that it's a blessing of the Lord to be able to relieve ourselves from sin on these 2 days in the month. Anybody who does not observe the Vrata and eats grains on Ekadashi is said to eat sin, for he disobeys the Lord's order and therefore displeases him. It is said that even if one mistakenly misses the observance of an Ekadashi, he or she can make it up by observing it the very next day on Dasi. Then you can break your fast with grain on Trayodasi, which is the third day. Sometimes there is a day called Mahadvatasi. This is when Ekadashi is astronomically combined with Dvadashi. So you end up in a combination of 2 days. The 12th day of the full moon, Dvadashi, or new moon lunar cycle. This is called pure Ekadashi. And the observance will start the evening before Mahadvadasi and through the next day with a basic Ekadashi fast. So when we have a Mahadvadasi, Ekadashi starts the previous day evening and extends all through the next day. Each Ekadashi day has particular benefits and blessings. One can attain by the performance of specific activities that are done on that day. By engaging in the extra study to learn what they are, one can derive even more benefit from each particular Ekadashi. So, in general, there are some rules about how to follow Ekadashi. But in this book that I was talking to you, each Ekadashi is very detailed described. It's also available online, the information that is there. And each Ekadashi has a story behind it. It gives us the benefits and it also tells us what specific activities we can perform for that Ekadashi that will benefit us. So, in the invocation of the book, I noticed something that was very interesting. I wanted to share. Sutta Goswami says, and he's talking about Ekadashi, he says there are 12 months in a year, 2 Ekadashis in every month, 24 in one full year, and in a leap year, 2 extra. Then he lists the whole list of Ekadashis. He says there are Utpanna, Mokshada, Safala, Putrada, Sattila, Jaya, Vijaya, Amalaki, Papamochani, Kamada, Varuthini, Mohini, Apara, Nirjala, Yogini, Padma, Kamka, Putrada, Aja, Parivartini, Indira, Papankusha, Rama, and Haribodhini. The 2 extra Ekadashis are Padmini and Parama. O sages, one who hears about these Ekadashis will learn how to observe them properly. Each Ekadashi bestows particular benefits on the faithful observer. One who is physically unable to fast on Ekadashi may read the glories of each Ekadashi when it occurs and recite all the names of all the Ekadashis. Thus, he will achieve the same goal as the person who observes the full Ekadashi vow. Now, is that not generous? So, each to his own by his own ability. And I thought that this point was very nice. And now that we have it available online, even if we cannot execute the full Ekadashi Vrata because of medical conditions, health conditions, age, very young children, there's always the benefit of being able to recite all the Ekadashi names and also read that specific Ekadashi, the details of that specific Ekadashi on that day. So, moving on. Of all these Ekadashis, some of these Ekadashis tend to be a highlight, like Vaikuntha Ekadashi for one. The other one that's coming up is the Pandava Nirjala Ekadashi. It is said that if one mistakenly misses the observance of Ekadashi, they can break the fast the very next day. One can observe also a special fast on a specific day called Nirjala Ekadashi. Now, as such, we can do Nirjala every Ekadashi. Nirjala every Ekadashi means we abstain from eating and we also abstain from drinking. We do not take water. We just stay without consuming any water or food for the whole day, and that becomes a Nirjala fast. Nirjalas can be done on any Ekadashi, but there's a specific Ekadashi called Pandava Nirjala Ekadashi that has extraordinary benefit and merit. And it is on this Ekadashi that everybody is requested to do the Nirjala Ekadashi, which is to fast without water. It sounds like a very difficult fast. It sounds like a real challenge, but nothing is impossible if we take shelter of the Lord. So for me personally, this Ekadashi is very, very dear because when I first started following Ekadashi and I came to Krishna consciousness, I noticed that it's a real challenge to remember what you can and cannot eat on a day. And somehow or the other, I would stumble and fall. Somewhere I'd make a mistake, I'd pop something in my mouth, or I wasn't sure, even with the sesame seeds, because you're in the process of learning. And the best way is the simplest way. But when we are still trying to convert from a regular lifestyle to Krishna conscious lifestyle, there's much adjustment and adaptation that's required in our daily life. And especially when we have families that are being trained into Krishna consciousness, we do not follow the concept of just be simple, drink some milk and fruits. We try to encourage everybody in our family to take to Krishna consciousness, encourage everyone to take to this vrata. And because Srila Prabhupada has made it so simple and so easy for us, we choose to cook well and serve nice, delicious meals on that day, so that there is this attachment to that festival day, that the Ekadashi becomes something to look forward to. And then over time, as we spiritually advance and we realize that there's so much more benefit in following the vrata more seriously, we start to choose a simpler lifestyle, simple eating, and increase our chanting and our japa accordingly. So the Pandava Nirjala Ekadashi is a very special Ekadashi. It's one Ekadashi in the year where everybody tries to do it without water, Nirjala. So when we observe that Ekadashi, we abstain not only from beans and grains, but from all food, even water. Let's look at before I go into the Pandava Nirjala Ekadashi story, because usually in Ekadashi, the main thing are the stories. We hear about the stories and the benefits of doing the Ekadashi, and it's like a shot in the arm. It's a motivator for us to go back and do it. But I do have some quotes on Ekadashi itself that I picked up. Let's share some of them. In Srimad Bhagavatam 9:429, it talks about how Maharaj Ambarish, along with his wife, his queen, who was equally qualified, observed the vow of Ekadashi and Dvadashi for 1 full year. In the purport, Srila Prabhupada says, to observe Ekadashi Vrata and Dvadashi Vrata means to please the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Those interested in advancing in Krishna consciousness must observe Ekadashi Vrata regularly. Maharaj Ambarish's queen was equally qualified as the king. Therefore, it was possible for Maharaj Ambarish to engage his life in household affairs. Okay. In this regard, the word Tula Silasya, Tula Silaya is very significant. Unless a wife is equally as qualified as her husband, household affairs are very difficult to continue. Chanakya Pandit advises that a person in such a situation should immediately give up household life and become vanaprastha or sannyasi. A person who has no mother at home or whose wife is not agreeable with him should immediately go away to the forest, because human life is meant for spiritual advancement only. One's wife must be helpful in this endeavor, otherwise there is no need of household life. So that was the idea. I pulled up the quote was to tell you that it's so beneficial to do the Ekadashi Vrata, and when we do it as a family, it's so much more beneficial. This idea of leaving is not exactly what I'm quoting. It's just a concept. And I have noticed so much that when one person in the family starts to do this, it is so motivating for the others in the family as well. So I do recommend that we do our best wherever we are, in whatever situation we are, and pray to the Lord for the ability to do more. There's another quote from C.C. Adi, 15:8, 8, 9, and 10. So it's a set of 3 quotes. It's a conversation between Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and his mother, Sachi Mata, where he is requesting his mother to follow Ekadashi Vrata. It is an important quote that we use. So I will wait for Monisha to put that up, and then we can talk about that quote. That is also a very nice quote. And there we go. Okay. So on this, it says, Ekadina Matra Pade Karya Pranam Prabhu Kahe Mata Mura Deha Ekadana. One day, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu fell down at the feet of his mother and requested her to give him one thing in charity. Mata bole, ta diba, ya tumi magibe. Prabhu kahe, ekadasite anna na kahibe. So he's telling his mother. His mother replied, my dear son, I'll give you whatever you want. Ask. And the Lord says, my dear mother, please do not eat grains on Ekadashi day. In the purport, Srila Prabhupada explains, from the very beginning of his childhood life, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu introduced the system of observing a fast on Ekadashi day. In the Bhakti Sandarbha by Srila Jiva Goswami, there is a quotation from the Skanda Purana admonishing that a person who eats grains on Ekadashi becomes a murderer of his mother, father, brother, and spiritual master, and even if he is elevated to Vaikuntha planets, he will fall down. On Ekadashi, everything is cooked for Vishnu, including regular grains and dal. But it is enjoined that a Vaishnava should not even take Vishnu Prasadam on Ekadashi. It is said that a Vaishnava does not accept anything eatable that is not offered to Lord Vishnu. But on Ekadashi, a Vaishnava should not touch even Mahaprasad offered to Vishnu, although such prasadam may be kept for eating the next day. It is strictly forbidden for one to accept any kind of grain on Ekadashi, even if it's offered to the Lord. So that is one of the rules and regulations of Ekadashi fasting, that even if it be Mahaprasadam, we do not consume it. Our regulation as Vaishnavas is to hold on to it and eat and consume it the next day. We do not take to consuming it the same day. Another shloka that I was looking at. Yes, so I have some quotes from Srila Prabhupada on Ekadashi. That's also very nice. In a room conversation, Prabhupada says, so I will read it out, so it may not be exactly in flow, but it's from a conversation. Prabhupada says, no, prasadam, according to our principle, just like on Ekadashi day, we do not accept even prasadam, anna. We keep it. So prasadam, just like in Ekadashi, anna is prohibited, but not to the deity. Deity is offered anna, but we cannot take the prasadam even. So following strictly the principle, even tambula is offered to Krishna. It is not for us. Yes, strictly follow the principle. Same example, just like on Ekadashi day, Anna is offered to Krishna, but we don't take. So in this conversation, it pops up, somebody is asking if they can take pan or tambul. And Srila Prabhupada says, well, the Lord can consume it, but for us it is prohibited. So when we have those strict principles, 4 regulative principles, we follow them accordingly. Just like as on Ekadashi, even though we offer Anna to the Lord, we will not partake. In another room conversation, the devotee is asking, on Ekadashi, can we offer deity grains? And Prabhupada says, yes, but not to Guru. Ekadashi is observed by Jiva Tattva, not by Vishnu Tattva. So that is the defining concept, that if you have Jiva Tattvas, then we can offer them only Ekadashi Prasadam, but Vishnu Tattvas, we can offer grains. There is an Srimad Bhagavatam lecture that he gave in LA, and he talks about this. I liked it a lot because he says, just like in a hospital, there are many patients. They are not eating anything on Ekadashi day. Does it mean that they are observing Ekadashi? And he chuckles there. He says, he's simply hankering after, what shall I eat? What shall I eat? What shall I eat? When shall I eat? But these students, they voluntarily don't eat anything. We don't say that you don't eat anything. Have some fruits, flowers, that's all. So, param drishtva nivartate, Bhagavad Gita 259. Just like a child, he has got in his hand something he's eating. And if you give him something better, he will throw away the inferior thing and take the better thing. So here in Krishna consciousness, this better engagement, better life, better philosophy, better consciousness, everything better. Therefore, they can give up the sinful activities of life, and that will promote them to Krishna consciousness. Isn't that so motivating? I really like this concept. Just because you fast doesn't mean you're going to get a benefit. Fasting with intention and electing to fast in service of the Lord, that is what gives us the prime benefit. So I did have a few more quotes from the Ekadashi book that I picked up. If you're interested, we could do that. So there is a quote from the Garuda Purana that says, there are 5 boats for people who are drowning in the ocean of worldly existence. One is Lord Vishnu, the second is the Bhagavad Gita, the third is Srimati Tulasi Devi, the fourth is the cow, and the fifth is the Ekadashi Vrata. Of all plants, the sacred Tulasi is most dear to me. Of all months, Kartika is most dear to me. Of all places of pilgrimage, my beloved Dwaraka is most dear. And of all days, Ekadashi is most dear. This comes in the Padma Purana, Uttarakhanda 112.3. When one fasts, imbalanced doshas are brought into equilibrium. The gastric fire is increased. One's body and mind are normalized. In addition, one gains physical lightness, a hearty appetite, healthy thirst, a pleasant disposition, good digestion, as well as strength, energy, and vigor. This is written in the Ayurveda Ashtangradhyam 1.3. And the last one, there are the benefits of fasting. These are the benefits of fasting: clearness of the sensory and motor organs, proper excretion of waste, lightness of the body, hearty appetite, timely appearance of hunger and thirst, purity of the pericardial regions, clearness of eructations and the throat, relaxation of acute tension in the body, cheerfulness and freedom from sluggishness. This is Ayurveda, Sutra Sthanam 1417. I fast to control my body and soul. It gives me strength and determination to achieve my goal. That was Gandhi. That is a quote from Gandhi. So we notice that the Puranas encourage us to do this fast. Fast has a lot of physical benefits. Even if you're not much into the spiritual fast, just look at the physical benefits. If you're into finding out what's in it for me, there's a lot of punya in doing these fasts. But for a Vaishnava, the only purpose of this fast is to follow the instruction of the Lord. The Lord instructs all Vaishnavas to fast on Ekadashi day, and that is why we do it. So we have the Pandava Nirjala Ekadashi. It is the 14th Ekadashi, and the only way to understand this Ekadashi any better is to read the glories of Pandava Nirjala Ekadashi. So I will wrap up with the story of Pandava Nirjala Ekadashi. And it all comes down, if you see in the name, it says Pandava. That gives us a hint as to where the story comes from. It comes from Bhima. This is also called Bhima Ekadashi because, in a sense, it is an Ekadashi for those who struggle to do regular Ekadashis. Now, isn't that so nice? The Lord first created a world where we wanted to be lording over things. And then recognizing that we are going to have a tough time, He gives us so many breaks. He gives us so many opportunities to pick ourselves up, dust ourselves up, and get going on the right direction. And Ekadashi is one of those opportunities. So Bhima, the younger brother of Maharaj Yudhishthira, asked the great sage Srila Vyasadeva, the grandfather of the Pandavas, if it is possible to return to the spiritual world without having observed all the rules and regulations of the Ekadashi fast. Wow, a guy after my own soul. Trying to find the short, easy way out. And there he is. So Bhimasena says, he speaks as follows. O great, intelligent, and learned grandfather, my brother Yudhishthira, my dear mother Kunti, and my beloved wife Draupadi, as well as Arjuna, Nakula, and Sahadeva, fast completely on each Ekadashi and strictly follow all the rules, regulations, guidelines of that sacred day. Being very religious, they always tell me I should also fast on that day too. But, oh learned grandfather, I tell them that I cannot live without eating, because as a son of Vayudev, Samana Prana, the digestive air, hunger is unbearable to me. I can give widely in charity and worship Lord Keshava properly with all manner of wonderful upacharas, items. But I cannot be asked to fast on Ekadashi. Please tell me, how can I obtain the same merits and results without fasting? Hearing these words, the great grandsire of Bhima, Srila Vyasadeva, says, if you want to go to the heavenly planets and avoid the hellish planets, you should indeed observe a fast on both the light and dark Ekadashis. Bhima replied, O great saintly intelligent grandfather, please listen to my plea. O greatest of Munis, since I cannot live if I eat only once in a day, how can I possibly live if I fast completely? Within my stomach burns a special fire named Vrika, the fire of digestion. Agni, the fire god, descends from Lord Vishnu through Brahma, from Brahma to Angirasa, from Angirasa to Brihaspati, and from Brihaspati to Samyu, who was Agni's father. He is the gatekeeper in charge of Nairitti, the southeastern direction. He is one of the 8 material elements, and Parikshit Maharaj, he is very expert at examining things. He examined Maharaj Shivi once by turning into a dove. So there is a reference to Bhaktivedanta Swami Maharaj's Bhagavatam commentary 1:12:20 purport to understand more about Maharaj Sibi. Agni is divided into 3 categories. Davagni, the fire in wood. Jatharagni, the fire in the digestion in your stomach. And Vadavagni, the fire that creates fog and hot and cold streams mixing in the ocean creating fog, that is Vadavragni. Another name for the fire of digestion is Vrika. It is this powerful fire that resides in Bhima's stomach. Only when I eat to my full satisfaction does the fire in my stomach be satisfied. O great sage, I might possibly be able to fast only once. So I beg you to tell me of an Ekadashi that is worthy of my fasting and that includes all other Ekadashis. I shall faithfully observe that fast and hopefully still become eligible for liberation's release. Srila Vyasadeva replied, O king, you have heard from me about various kinds of occupational duties, such as elaborate Vedic ceremonies and pujas. In the Kali Yuga, however, no one will be able to observe all these occupational and functional duties properly. I shall therefore tell you how, at practically no expense, one can endure some small austerity and achieve the greatest benefit and resultant happiness. Ta-da! The essence of which is written in the Vedic literatures known as the Puranas, and is that one should not eat on either the dark or light fortnight Ekadashis. As stated in the Srimad Bhagavatam, Mahabhagavata Purana 12, 13, 12, and 15, the Bhagavad Puranam is itself the essence of cream of all Vedanta philosophy, Sara Vedanta Saram. And the Srimad Bhagavatam's unequivocal message is that of full surrender to Lord Sri Krishna and rendering loving devotional service to him. Observing Ekadashi strictly is a great aid in that process. And here Srila Vyasadeva is simply stressing to Bhima the importance of the Ekadashi Vrata. One who fasts on Ekadashis is saved from going to the hellish planets. Hearing Srila Vyasadev's words, the son of Vayu, Bhimasen, the strongest of all warriors, became frightened and began to shake like a leaf on a banyan tree in a strong wind. The frightened Bhimasen then said, "O grandfather, what should I do? I am completely unable and ill-equipped to fast twice in a month throughout the year. Please tell me of one fasting day that will bestow the greatest benefit on me." Vyasadeva replied, "Without drinking even water, you should fast on the Ekadashi that occurs during the light fortnight of the month of Jyeshta, between May and June, when the sun travels in the sign of Taurus, Vrishava, and Gemini, Mithuna. According to learned personalities, on this day one may bathe and perform achaman for pratiprokshana purification. But while performing achamana, one may drink only that amount of water equal to a drop of gold, or that amount that it takes to immerse a single mustard seed. Only this amount of water should be placed in the right palm for sipping, and which one should form to resemble a cow's ear. So you shape your hand, you put in just a drop for achaman. If one drinks more water than this, he might as well have drunk wine despite the soaring heat of summer. So there is a regulation. You cannot. In the northern hemisphere and cold and southern hemispheres, he's talking about the direction. One must certainly not eat anything, for if he does, he breaks his fast. The rigid fast is in effect from sunrise on Ekadashi day to sunrise on Dwadashi day. If a person endeavors to observe this great fast very strictly, he easily achieves the result of observing all 24 other Ekadashi fasts throughout the entire year. On Dwadashi, the devotee should bathe early in the morning and then, according to prescribed rules, guidelines, and regulative injunctions, and of course, depending on his ability, he should give some gold and water to worthy Brahmanas. Finally, he should cheerfully honor Prasadam with a Brahman. O Bhimasen, one who can fast on this special Ekadashi in this manner reaps the benefit of having fasted on every Ekadashi during the year. There is no doubt of this, nor should there be any. O Bhima, now hear the specific merit one gets by fasting on this Ekadashi. The Supreme Lord Keshava, who holds a conch, discus, club, and lotus, personally told me, everyone should take shelter of me and follow my instructions. Then he told me that one who fasts on this Ekadashi without taking even drinking water or eating becomes free from all sinful reactions, and that one who observes the difficult Nirjala fast on Jyeshta Shukla Ekadashi truly reaps the benefit of all other Ekadashi fasts. O Bhimasen, in the Kali Yuga, the age of quarrel and hypocrisy, when all principles of the Vedas will have been destroyed or greatly minimized, and when there will be no proper charity or observance of the ancient Vedic principles and ceremonies, how will there be any means of purification of the self? But there is an opportunity to fast on Ekadashi and become free from all one's past sins. O son of Vayu, what more can I say to you? You should not eat during the Ekadashis that occur during the dark and light fortnights, and you should even give up drinking water on the particularly auspicious Ekadashi of Jyeshta Shukla Ekadashi. O Vrikodara, voracious eater, whoever fasts on this Ekadashi receives the merits of bathing in all places of pilgrimage, giving all kinds of charity to worthy persons, and fasting on all the dark and light Ekadashis throughout the year in one go. Of this there is no doubt. O tiger among men, whoever fasts on this Ekadashi truly becomes a great person and achieves all manner of opulence and wealth, grains, strength, and health. And at that fearful moment of death, the terrible Yamadutas, whose complexions are yellow and black, and who brandish huge maces and twirl mystic pasha ropes in the air for binding their victims, will refuse to approach him. Rather, such a faithful soul will at once be taken to the supreme abode of Lord Vishnu by the Vishnu Dutas, whose transcendently beautiful forms are clothed in gorgeous yellowish garments, and who each hold a disc, club, conch, and lotus in their four hands, resembling Lord Vishnu. It is to gain all these benefits that one should certainly fast on this very auspicious and important Ekadashi, even from water. When the other Pandavas heard about the benefits to be gained by following the Jyeshta Shukla Ekadashi, they resolved to observe it exactly as their grandfather, Srila Vyasadeva, had explained it to their brother Bhimasen. All the Pandavas observed it by refraining from eating or drinking anything, and thus this day is also known as Pandava Nirjala Ekadashi, technically as Mahadvatasi. Srila Vyasadeva continued, O Bhimasen, therefore you should observe this important fast to remove all your past sinful reactions. You should pray to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Lord Sri Krishna, in this way, making your Sankalpa declaration. O Lord of all Devas, demigods, O Supreme Personality of Godhead, today I shall observe Ekadashi without taking any water. O unlimited Anantadev, I shall break fast on the next day, Dwadasi. Therefore, to remove all his sins, a devotee should honor the Ekadashi fast with full faith in the Lord and with full control over his senses. Whether his sins are equal in volume to Mount Sumeru or to Mandrachala hills, if he or she observes this Ekadashi fast, the sins that have been accumulated all become nullified and are burnt to ashes. Such is the great power of this Ekadashi. O best of humans, although a person should also give water and cows in charity during this Ekadashi, if for some reason or other he cannot, he should give a qualified Brahmana some cloth or a pot filled with water. Indeed, the merit achieved by giving water alone equals that gained by giving gold 10 million times a day. O Bhima, Lord Krishna said that whoever observes this Ekadashi should take a holy bath, give charity to a worthy person, chant the Lord's holy names on a japamala, and perform some kind of recommended sacrifice. For by doing these things on this day, one receives imperishable benefits. There is no need to perform any other kind of religious duty. Observance of this Ekadashi fast alone promotes one to the supreme abode of Sri Vishnu. O best of the Kurus, if one donates gold, cloth, or anything on this day, the merit one obtains is imperishable. Remember, whosoever eats any grains on Ekadashi becomes contaminated by sin and verily eats only sin. In effect, he has already become a dog eater, and after death he suffers hellish existence. But he who observes this sacred Jyeshta Shukla Ekadashi and gives something in charity certainly achieves liberation from the cycle of repeated birth and death and attains to the supreme abode. Observing this Ekadashi, which is merged with Dwadashi, frees one from the horrible sin of killing a Brahman, drinking liquor and wine, becoming envious of one's spiritual master, and ignoring his instructions, and continually telling lies. Furthermore, O best of beings, Jivottama, any man or woman who observes this fast properly and worships the Supreme Lord Jal, Jalshayi, he who sleeps on the water, that is Supreme Lord Jalashayi Vishnu, and who on the next day satisfies a qualified Brahmana with nice sweets and a donation of cow or money, such a person certainly pleases the Supreme Lord Vasudev, so much so that 100 previous generations in his family undoubtedly go to the Supreme Lord's abode, even though they may have been very sinful, of bad character, and guilty of suicide, etc. Indeed, one who observes this amazing Ekadashi rides on a glorious celestial airplane, Vimana, to the Lord's abode. One who on this day gives a Brahman a water pot, an umbrella, or shoes certainly goes to the heavenly planets. Indeed, he who simply hears these glories also attains to the transcendental abode of Supreme Lord Sri Vishnu. Whoever performs the Shraddha ceremony to their forefathers on the dark moon day called Amavasya, particularly if it occurs at the time of solar eclipse, undoubtedly achieves great merit. But this same merit can be achieved by him who simply hears this sacred narration. So powerful and so dear to the Lord is this Ekadashi. One should clean his teeth properly and without eating or drinking, observe this Ekadashi to please the Supreme Lord Keshava. On the day after Ekadashi, one should worship the Supreme Personality of Godhead in his form as Trivikrama by offering him water, flowers, incense, and a brightly burning lamp. Then the devotee should pray from the heart, O God of gods, O deliverer of everyone, O Rishikesha, master of the senses, kindly bestow upon me the gift of liberation, though I can offer you nothing greater than this humble pot filled with water. Then the devotee should donate the water pot to a Brahmin. O Bhishma, after this Ekadashi fast, in donating the recommended items according to his ability, the devotee should feed Brahmins and thereafter honor prasadam silently. Srila Vyasadeva concluded, I strongly urge you to fast on this auspicious, purifying, sin-devouring Dwadashi in just the way I have outlined. Thus you will be completely free of all sins and reach the supreme abode. Thus ends the narration of the glories of Jyeshta Shukla Ekadashi or Bhimaseni Nirjala Ekadashi from the Brahma Vaivarta Purana. So that was the story of Ekadashi, our special Pandava Nirjala Ekadashi. And I hope that, this motivates you to take to the process of Ekadashi. For those who have just started, who've taken to Krishna consciousness and seem to like this way of life and would like to continue, Ekadashi is certainly something that should be a priority, because not only does it have so many benefits, it's very pleasing to the Lord, and it's helping you. It's actually helping us in the process. So by doing this Ekadashi, we are training ourselves, our mind, body, and spirit, to always be in service. And if somebody, when you need some help and somebody's stretching their hand down for you, I think it would be nice to hold on to it. And that is what the Lord is doing for us by offering us Ekadashis. He's stretching his hand down and saying, let me pull you up, one step up. And all you have to do is grab on, hold on. Ekadashi, when we first start, even Krishna consciousness is challenging, because we are not in a mental state to recognize the rules and regulations. We find it very difficult to transition from material life into Krishna conscious life. A lot of rules, a lot of do's and don'ts, especially with food and cultural requirements. When it comes to food, we realize that there are a lot of rules and regulations. When you go into the supermarket the first time, it's really a challenge to figure out what we can buy, because then we start to realize how many things break the rules and regulations. But over time, we all get to a point where we become very comfortable. It is, of course, called a way of life, which means once we choose it, we adapt to it. And now online, there are many recipes for wonderful Ekadashi feasts that can be cooked. There's also this book from Krishna Priya Dasi. This book is especially for dishes on Ekadashi, which he specially wrote a lot of different dishes on Ekadashi. We had the opportunity to get these books, so we picked them up. Ekadashi cooking can be as simple as you want. It can be as complex and complicated as you want. But having spent a few years practicing the vrata, one thing I do over time start to enjoy is the simplicity of the vrata. It's so much easier to just have a glass of milk or some fruits and then spend the time reading, the Mahatmyas, or doing some extra rounds of chanting. But when you have young children, when your house is new and it's taking to the process, the recommendation is to do your best, cook wonderful Ekadashi meals for the family, so that they not only get Krishna Prasadam, they also get the right kind of Prasadam on the right day. And, it is it's the best service we can do for them on Ekadashi, is to feed them good Krishna Prasadam, Ekadashi Prasadam. So I hope that this inspires you. And coming up June 20th, you will choose to do the Ekadashi Vrata. For those who cannot do the Vrata, so many points in the book apply. If you are not able to, do read about the glories of the Ekadashi Vrata, recite all the Ekadashis, do cover that. And then Maharaj always recommends to add some additional spiritual service. You could do some reading or extra chanting on that day. Everything is beneficial. With that, I will stop. If anybody has any questions or any comments, we would love to hear from you. No? Okay.
Hare Krishna,
So,
Mataji.
yes, Prabhu?
Please accept my humble obeisances on Guru Srila Prabhupada. So, dear Madhavadasi here, Mataji.
Oh, Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna. That was so insightful, Mataji. Rich with many relevant and devotional quotes pertaining Ekadashi Vrata. I'm very grateful to hear them, Mataji. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Prabhu. it was a nice opportunity to have Krishna Katha with all the wonderful devotees. And actually, because of the pandemic, it was on my mind that the best part of doing service in the temple, coming to the temple, seeing the deities, getting to watch Mangalarti or even Sayanarti, and then having prasadam. The best part, and the part that we all miss so much more, is the time we spend with devotees while partaking prasadam or later, where we can chat about things, share realizations, talk a little Krishna Katha. I think that is the part that we miss the most. And these opportunities, I felt, these opportunities through these small little classes are a great opportunity to connect with everyone and just talk about these things that are coming up, these festivals, these celebrations, these highlights of our lives as Vaishnavas, and just share it. So I'm very grateful for this opportunity to be able to do that. Thank you, Prabhu. If anybody has any doubts or any questions, Ekadashi Vrata can be as simple as you want it to be. It can be as complicated as you want it to be. For those who have been in the path for many years and would like to, do more, try a little more stricter vratas, follow it with more regulations, the Hari Bhakti Vilas has a lot more detail on Ekadashi Vrata. It covers actually, if my memory serves me right, it covers actually a 3-day vrata it talks about from before Ekadashi. It talks from Dashami, Ekadashami, and then Dvadasi. So it goes from the 10th, 11th, and 12th day. So it's actually a stretched vrata. You can do that. And then there are a lot of regulations. When we read about these regulations, one thing I did want to say is that, we're all fallen souls. Whether we're going to hell, we're being dog eaters, or sin, or something, Maharaj always focuses on the good stuff. And that's what I would always recommend. When we take to Ekadashi, it's always because of the benefit we can get from Ekadashi and the joy we have in doing that service. As devotees, we don't do Ekadashi with the idea that, we will get something from it. We do it because it's a service to the Lord. And Srila Prabhupada has made Ekadashi so easy, and the devotees in ISKCON have the recipes that they have made Ekadashi so delicious that there's hardly an excuse for us not to follow Ekadashi. But on this one day, Pandava Nirjala Ekadashi, for people like me who always kind of mess it up, make one mistake somewhere in the year, and not quite sure if all my Ekadashi worked out, and this is your golden opportunity, your golden ticket, as they say, to cover up all the mistakes that you think might have happened, and go for it. Get the full credit, full benefit of all the Ekadashis by doing the Pandava Nirjala Ekadashi Vrata. So with that, we will stop today. And I hope that it was motivating for all of you. Very, very grateful for the opportunity. Please forgive me if any of my references were wrong, or if any of my notes were not on par. I wish everybody a wonderful Ekadashi Vrata coming up. And I thank you all for coming and attending this class and sharing a Krishna Katha with me. Hare Krishna.